What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Lore Reloaded. I am your magnanimous host, James from the Lore Reloaded. Hey, if you're watching this, you know exactly what's about to happen, especially if you're video on demand. I'm about to throw some things at you. If you haven't check me out at twitter.com/Lore Reloaded. Also, you can play games and hang out with me at twitch.tv/Lore Reloaded. And with all that stuff out of the way, let's just get into it. We got Nate Watson here. Nate, always a pleasure to have you, good sir. Glad to have you up. We got Jack Marshall, and of course, Dan Hogan actually got a notification. So basically, every day is Guy Fawkes Day for Dan Hogan when it comes down to this. Micah Leith in the house. What's going on, Micah? Hope you doing well today. And of course, Zun Gary. And let's just jump into it, and then we'll see how far it goes. May run a little bit later, may do it a little bit early. Again, just depends on the conversation we're having. So this is going to be a discussion on the specific episode that I get quite a few requests to do, which is Unnatural Selection. Of course, this is where they talk about human manipulation of the genome and things of that nature. And usually it bumps up against Deep Space Nine. I also recently saw a video by Lore Runner, who recently did a breakdown of the episode itself. I figured, what the heck, we'll get into it. We'll talk about it today. And probably either Thursday or next week, I'll be doing an actual lore breakdown on it. Disappointed Optimist was going on. Jack Marshall, glad you got the notification as well. Uratako, always able to come in. Always welcome on the live stream, good sir. So, also Wednesday, I'll be having the Discovery. I think it's Wednesday, most likely. Either tomorrow or Wednesday, I'll be having one of the developers from Cryptic to come discuss the Victory is Life mod. So looking forward to that. But yeah, let's just go ahead and break it down here, guys. So, for those who haven't seen Unnatural Selection or need a little bit of a refresher on what's going on, ultimately the Enterprise comes upon a Federation ship, the USS Lantry, that everyone aboard it is, for all intents and purposes, dead. And then they go to a colony or station during their research, and they discover a project where people are genetically manipulating children, called Darwin Station. And from there, hijinks occur. We're not going to necessarily completely discuss that episode unless you guys want to. But the real question generally comes about with how was this allowed? Was this something that was supposed to be done? Was it off the books? What was occurring here when you look at Deep Space Nine, where they went out of their way to say how genetic manipulation is against the law, because then you'll have people like cons and all of that good stuff. No, I don't think this one is more about manipulating human beings and making it so they can be telekinetic and telepathic and all of that grand and fancy stuff. Hybrid Jack. So, interestingly enough, a lot of questions come up like why was this allowed to happen? Why would this occur? And so I have a couple of ideas, but interestingly enough, and Lore Runner brought this up, but this was something I'd already considered and something that's a well-known theory. And that is, this colony was ran by Section 31. So consider this. We know that Starfleet, in some way or some form, endorsed or was okay with what they were doing, or they turned a blind eye to it. How do we know this? Why do we know this? Well, a Federation ship, which, by the way, there's a lot of evidence to show that this was a military ship, was supplying them. When they got to the station, there wasn't really necessarily a ton of conversation about arresting these people. Not for specifically just genetically manipulating the kids to begin with. So we have to consider why and how this was going through. Why would this happen? Nate Watson says, my theory is that this station was outside Federation territory, so they got around the law that way. Guantanamo Bay style. Kinda. My thoughts on it were that I would agree that it probably was outside of Federation space. And that ultimately what occurred was in the background you would have Section 31 still attempting to see what advantages that you could gain to ensure that the Federation always had an advantage if they needed it, right? And so the question became, what specifically to do about this? Because obviously the laws, in theory, should have been there. So it's easy. You move them out of the territory, and then you do what we always see happens with the Federation. You get some people who are sympathetic to your cause, who don't mind doing what needs to be done to safeguard the Federation, and just have supplies run when they need it, and just watch them in the background. Shrone Moore, just catching the stream now. Hope you're doing okay. I'm doing fine, buddy. I'm doing better now that you're here. Now it's a party. And so they were running these experimentations, and God only knows how many. And I'll bet they probably stuck with Starfleet Intelligence Black Ops to get around this. And so the Lantry would run cargo or run supply drops ever so often. And the only really tough piece to it, though, is that, again, when the Enterprise arrives, there was no real outcry or discussion about how this breaks the rules. Now, again, even if it's outside of Federation territory, outside of Federation space, they have always been higher than thou for me. I think that you have to jump a lot of hoops in order to try to make this work. But we're going to do it, you and me. Hey, Lore, Don Juan. Hey, Lore, was curious if you expand on the topic of Hirigen versus Jemadar topic. There was an anti-Trekkers channel last night. Yeah, my reply was wrong. When I was thinking, the Hirigen, I was thinking about another race that was in Deep Space Nine. It wasn't the Hirigen. The Hirigen are not obviously genetically modified. The Jemadar are not modified from the Jemadar. That's why I deleted it. I was wrong. Halor and TNG, all of their rules are dicta dogma from on high. That makes the rules violation double bad. Of that, I would agree. Cryptic Stream. So I'll have to dust-covered VHS and dust-covered VHS player from the attic with massive spiders. No thanks. Okay. Sounds more like the writers simply forgot or didn't care about the whole illegal thing when it comes to genetic experimentation. Well, it wasn't illegal technically it was illegal. Deep Space Nine retconned and made it illegal. But at the time, they hadn't written the Deep Space Nine episodes, so genetic modification at the time of writing technically wasn't illegal, but it is in canon. It's illegal. Have you seen, hey Laura, have you seen the For Your Consideration article on Star Trek Discovery from the Trek News Twitter? I haven't. So link me to that on Twitter if you haven't already, and I'll take a look at it. Nathaniel Shade in the house. The standard motto of the channel, hashtag Let's All Die of Dysentery. Section 31 needs to keep it legal. No matter if they are or aren't in Federation territory, they should get a lot of S thrown at them. Yeah, so again, let's bring it on back. The humans themselves, the children that they were genetically modifying, was probably done and fielded by Section 31. It's the only way that that Starfleet would be okay with this happening and not ask any questions. The only other thing that I could think of is, again, that it did happen outside of Federation territory. And at that point, you would have the unrealistic, let's not judge others for our own rules or things like that. Now, that goes completely against how the next generation has worked historically. But it is definitively possible that that's where they were going with it, right? And so from there, the question becomes as well, towards the end of it, what what occurs and happens with these children. I honestly think that Section 31 probably in this makes the Enterprise crew look horrific, but I do think that Section 31 probably came back in and saw the advantages of having telekinetic and telepathically powerful humans that could kill people with their own immune system. And I wonder if Section 31 didn't start making their own assassins. And it does bring up some interesting questions. And I think Darth Revan specifically has a interesting point. They could use children from destroyed ships accidents or attacks and have the children declared dead. Why would it be illegal if it could help make people better, like Dr. Bashir? That becomes the moral quandary of that, though. You could make quite a few arguments like that, and even take it to an absurd argument that would make sense, but show why we can't really go down that road. And Michael Letha's right, by the way. 67 people watching, only 20 likes? Come on, people. Hit that like button. There is a lot that we could do that would help out society and humanity, but we wouldn't consider it moral. When people pass away, when they die, without their consent, we could chop up their bodies and use what organs are available to help the healthy. They don't need it anymore, and thus that would help society. While I think it's a weaker argument, you could, in theory, do the same thing with those who aren't giving to society, aren't pushing for society. So those who are destitute or those who are on the streets, you could then use them as resources. So when we start going down this path, well, it's helping so many people. Morally, I don't think that it's a good argument. Cryptic Stream says advantages. Telepathy puts pain on the being. If you think about it, all those voices in a child's head is something bad. When I say advantages, I mean for Section 31 and Starfleet. The advantage of having a human that is telekinetic and telepathic, even if you're going to do horrific things to that human, in theory, could help out Section 31. Imagine if they tested this, and these, antigens or these immune systems did that to the Jem'Hadar. Rick Van Boberson, just on Twitter, go ahead and tweet me that you're trying to DM me, and I'll follow you, good sir. I shall follow you. Okay, that was weird. Am I back? Okay, that was really weird. Oh, and that is horrific. Okay, well, as long as you guys can hear me. Ugh, I don't like the way that's looking, though. Thanks, YouTube. Thanks, buddy. Let's see. Okay, anyway. Let me know how it looks to you guys as well, because for some reason, YouTube just disconnected me. Anyway, what was I talking about? Where were we going with that? Imagine if you could do that to the Jem'Hadar, right? Imagine if the Jem'Hadar were able to be killed like that, and all you have to do at this point is just get it to them. Find a way of putting it in the atmosphere or getting it to the ship, or just whatever you need to do to get it there, right? So I think it would be Section 30. I think it would be very advantageous for Section 31. Nathaniel Shade, yes, it could help, but we could also do something that we don't catch for a few generations and not to be able to fix, causing our own extinction. Sure. Well, I mean, that's technically almost with anything, right? Anytime you do anything, you could have issues with extinction level events, even if it's not even meant to be, even if it's benign, right? But I think that the way you look at it would be the uh, what's the word I'm looking for? Um, the needs of the many versus the needs of the few, the risk versus reward. I'm not necessarily saying this is what I think should be done or what I think should be um, think the way it should go, or that I'm pro Section 31. I'm just trying to give that option. Yeah, I didn't get it, Rick. Send it to james@lorereloaded.com and I'll take a look at it. So just email it to me. Uh, let's see. Even if we agreed that genetic modification is morally okay, I would not want it in the hands of Section 31, which have no real oversight.
What are you?
A monk.
Yeah, I would agree with you there, Hyperjack. I do think that that it, I see the need for Section 31, but the fact that they're doing this, uh, the fact that they are um, uh, wanting to do Black Ops is really scary to me. And I'm not sure I would want to go that far. But I definitively see your point on why we wouldn't want them to get it. I don't know, though, because, again, the world within that you live in, within Trek, with the Jem'Hadar, with the Vidians, and things like that, I mean, it's not a nice world. Q was right in Q Who. It's a wondrous place full of things to entrance the mind, but it's also one of the most dangerous places, too. Aaron Telford, could the result of these experimentations result in the bioweapon used against the Founders? Oh, that's interesting. I didn't think about that. What's going on, Jess Hull? Huh. I like that. There's obviously no canon that supports it, but what if that was the genesis of it? Um, so we've always assumed that it was when he linked, and maybe it was. But what if they did? They took these humans, they continued to study them, continued to use them, found out exactly how the immune system was set up to attack whatever it's attacking. And so then they tweak it just a little bit to infect Odo, and thus infect the Great Link. And if they did it that way, it wouldn't even be necessarily that hard. They would just have to have one of the children or one of the kids, or maybe even just the virus in aerosol form, and just get Odo into a same room. And then you're not even going to get caught because it's going to actively attack him. That is extremely compelling. I almost wish that there was alpha canon in it. I like it so much, honestly. Vulcans are naturally telepathic, therefore they have no pain as they have evolved to not feel pain unless it's inflicted on them by another with telepathy. Sure, no, I'm not saying that this didn't negatively impact to a large degree the kids. Especially, like you said, they didn't evolve to it. It just hit them all at once. So, I mean, it's not even necessarily about that. It's just the advantages that they have, you know? Even feared organizations, such as the Obsidian Order. By the way, Captain Geronimo, welcome back. I'm enjoying, he's doing a series on Victory is Life. You all should check it out. I'm enjoying it. Even feared organizations, such as the Obsidian Order and Tal Shiar, were not as advanced as Section 31 when you look at that. They did everything clean and in secret. Yeah. I mean, when you look at Section 31, because they've never been caught, they've never been seen, no one has ever known about them, they are the most efficient and deadly and lethal organization in Trek that has ever existed. The Dominion, what I would consider the most powerful organization of its era, who was able to both infiltrate the Tal Shiar, infiltrate the Obsidian Order, infiltrate Starfleet, and never knew about Section 31. Someone, by the way, someone asked, oh yeah, Mr. Pete Channel is also doing a multi-part review on Solo. Y'all should check that out as well. Where was it? Someone was asking me about Pulaski, and I missed it. Where? So someone asked effectively, do I think Pulaski was racist, bigoted, and insubordinate? I think that Pulaski was insubordinate, though I don't think that she necessarily did it on purpose. I think that she was more insubordinate because she was passionate and she jumped in front of people, and because she thought she was right. I do think she was bigoted the way she treated Data, or Data, as she liked to call him, and I think she was egotistical and thought a lot of herself. And I don't think that I think Pulaski was written so badly that we didn't have enough time or any reason to like her. And I think that she was a product of the writers just not being able to do anything with her. And I think because of that, that's why she's generally and resoundingly hated. And Mr. Pete, $1. Thank you so much. I think that is unfortunate because I don't like her at all either. I don't have any love for that character, but I do think that it is because of the writing, and I think that she was written bigoted. I don't know why they did that. I'll be honest with you, and maybe someone has a better answer. I don't know why they wrote her like that. She was just contrary. She was bigoted towards Data and artificial life. I don't know. I don't know why. I'd be open to people giving me their opinions on that. Nathaniel Shade, I agree that Section 31 is needed. You can't have a utopia unless you have a bad man in the background protecting it. There needs to be a sheepdog to keep the wolves at bay. Yeah, you know, that's the thing. At least in our society, I think there is. I think that has to exist. I don't think that good, like ultimate good, like the version of Starfleet and Federation good, exists without people who are worse than the enemies they're fighting. I don't know that that's necessarily the vision that Gene wanted for Star Trek, and I think that in that way it's kind of dishonoring. But I'll say this about that. Gene had a lot of horrific ideas when it came to Star Trek itself. I mean, he was genius in having the initial spark of Star Trek and this entire universe and things. And I will infinitely, forever be thankful for that. But when he tried to build it out, I don't think that he knew how to build it out. I'd say the same thing about Lucas, honestly. Believe it or not, George Lucas is a genius in the idea of Star Wars, the spark of Star Wars. Building it out, I don't think so much. Hybrid Jack, I do have a question. How do we believe they control these people? Extreme indoctrination or some sort of technological control? And what do they do that those that don't want to be used? I would say at first, since they're children, they would probably use manipulation and for the cause type thing. Ultimately, it would be genius. I get it. I like where you're going with that, XF. I think operant conditioning, brainwashing, and then ultimately probably by force if they had to. It would just be just as bad as any other installation that has kids and is attempting to yeah, I mean, I think that it's just as bad as any thing we'd watch where you have a telepathic person and then you have this evil organization. That would be Section 31. Nate Watson, I think the bigotry was deliberate. It was meant to show that such bigotry against AI was common in the Federation. We could later see more of this in Voyager. Sure, but the problem is that if you want people to like Pulaski and you want Pulaski to last, you have to do something with that arc. You have to do something. You have to make her grow. And they didn't let her grow, in my opinion. Um, yeah. It makes sense no one knows about Section 31. The ROMs and Cardis are totalitarian, and the intel groups are used as boogeyman to help keep the people in line by fear. Section 31 is used to defend the people. You know, I would actually agree with that. I think that Section 31 is probably one of the most horrific organizations that has ever existed and are willing to do anything that any of their counterparts would, if not worse. Genocide, even the destruction or killing of their own people if they had to. I do think that their charter is in defense and not in subjugation, oppression, or offense like all of the others. Now, dollars to donuts. I'll bet $100 dollars to donuts. Section Discovery changes that. Discovery is going to use them as the boogeyman, and they're going to be attacking and trying to take down the Federation and Starfleet because that's just what Discovery does. That's just who Discovery is. Era Vaganthus. Ha ha ha. Early TNG growth. Good joke. Yeah, you know, I like to entertain people. I'm here to entertain you, so I'm glad that happened. Talk to you later, Mr. Pete. Section 31 on human experimentation was just barbaric in ways of treating the people and why they did it. Using children to possibly get information from their enemies for self-goal is not just. Not just disgusting, they have broken human rights law. Well, of course, but I mean, if you're going to do this, you have a couple of options. You can do adults that are all for the cause and that way, or you could find useful idiots like these people who wanted to do the genome. See, I don't believe that the people in the colony who was doing the experiments on the children were actually a part of Section 31. I just think they were useful idiots. Just absolutely useful idiots. And that they were being manipulated by Section 31. And then I think the kids were ultimately probably taken away from them. Or an accident happened and the kids needed to be saved. But yeah, I always assumed Pulaski's arc would be her accepting AI, but since she was kicked off the show, they could never follow through. Yeah, I mean, regardless of what it wanted to be, what it was is quite different. How big is Section 31? How do they organize such huge projects? It was mentioned that there is no location and that all of Section 31 is only in the heads of its members, so it couldn't be that big. Jess Holt, there's a couple of things to that. Yeah, it's mentioned that it's people and not an organization. But this was also being told by a Section 31 operative who was dying, who did not want Bashir to get the information or to get away. And so his final trap was to say, hey, look at all this knowledge that I have. There's no centralized location, so once it's gone forever. That could have been a lie. It was a trap. We know it was a trap. Bashir said, you know, it was the one thing he never would have been able to do, right? And so, if that was a trap, then why do we have any reason to believe that it is just like they say, just like these people talk about? That it was just this. So, you know, it was just this non-centralized, there's only like 3 of us that know what's going on, you know? And so, yeah, I mean, that's my thoughts on it. Do you think Section 31 would ever use the information provided by 7 of 9 to experiment on the Borg? Absolutely. I think that Section 31, if they ever got their hands on Borg or Borg technology, they would, without question, experiment, especially if it's non-Alpha Quadrant, or at least not Federation species. I mean, why would you give that up? Why would you sit there and say, you know, hey, we're not going to do any experimentation on the Borg? That's a heck of an advantage. I would see them either recruiting 7 of 9 or somehow getting information from her. I don't think that they would torture her or kill her to get it. I do think that they would find another way, though. I think Section 31 is smaller than we think. You have a core of hardened true believers, and they have cells who create cells. If one cell dies, there are others who take up the cause. I could see Section 31 being broken into cells. For sure. That makes sense. Because you never want, if one person is compromised, you only want it to compromise a small section. And so I could definitively see that. I do think that they're a lot larger than we were led to believe, but I would agree that they're probably into cells. Groups, into groups. Do I consider Section 31 a necessary evil? I do, especially in the Deep Space Nine era. You could probably justify it in the Next Generation as well. I think that with the enemies that the Federation faces, they could not exist as they are. Maybe Section 31 is working with or for the Time Federation, and their HQ is in the future. Their uniforms look like Daniel's. I don't think they'd be working for the Time Federation. I would not be surprised, because the way Daniels talks, I don't know that Starfleet or the Federation exists in the 31st century. He says it's an organization. He doesn't say it's Starfleet or the Federation. I could see Section 31 corrupting that, or having their own side piece to it, because they would not let that pass without addressing it, right? So yeah, they might have gotten the uniforms from Daniel. How interesting would that be if Daniels was a part of Section 31 in some way or form? I think that would be very curious to me. Do not forget Star Trek Online and what happens when you mess with Borg tech. True, though generally when I talk about things, I don't use soft canon, but that I agree. And by the way, for you guys, just so you know, 87 people watching, only 43 thumbs ups. What's going on, people? What's going on in here? And 9 p.m. Central Standard Time tonight, I'll be talking. We'll put Section 31 on trial. Not just talk about the secret human experimentation, but we'll put them on trial and see what we think about Section 31. I already talked about it a little bit, but we can go from there. So let me ask you guys a question, though. What do you think from the Next Generation Section 31 also had a hand in? I do think definitively they had a hand in this genetic manipulation. It's the only way that can exist. What other things do you think would they have been in when just looking at the Next Generation itself? Federation Starfleet Civil War in the 26th century, says Sci-Fi Satan. Okay. I've been thinking that Section 31 being the size of Cerberus from Mass Effect, but Section 31 is better at hiding everything they do. That could be interesting. People are thumbing. I don't care, thumbing down. I want, you know what? You do it. There's 86 people, 50, 60, 70, 80. Let's do 20 thumbs down. You do it. Do it. Hit that button. You know what? I don't know if it'll show up. It probably won't. No, it won't, so I can't do it. I would do LaBeouf and just do it. ST2Al, USS Pegasus. That's a good one. I've always had that too. I think Pegasus was a Section 31 op. And I do think that even though what we see happen in that episode where it's like, oh, all these people are going to be in trouble and stuff, I don't think it happened like that. I think that Section 31 probably saved a lot of those people and got the cloak. And it would explain how they were able to do a lot of what they did in Deep Space Nine. With Section 31 having the phase cloak, a lot of the ways they appeared, how they got here, how they weren't detected, a lot of those things is explained away by that. By the way, we got Tim Ander becoming a lore master. Welcome to the lore, Tim Ander. How can Section 31 be in the Charter but be made before the formation of the Federation? Because the Charter was actually made by the United Earth. Starfleet existed before the Federation. Starfleet became the official military after its formation. And so the Charter existed long before the United Federation of the Planets even existed. But yeah. That would be how it is. Someone said the Prometheus was a Section 31 ship. I don't know. I'd be interested, Cryptic. I'd be interested in you expanding on that, but I don't see where we could go with that. Lobster11 taking me to task, saying, laugh out loud, YouTube algorithm don't care if it's a thumb up or thumb down. You would be correct, sir. It doesn't care if it's a thumb up or thumb down, just that you thumb. Though, there are two reasons that I tell you to thumb down if you want, and I don't even care. The first one is, you're right, YouTube doesn't care. If I had 100 thumbs down, it would be better than if I had 50 thumbs up. Number two, though, I don't let people tell me how to do what I do or intimidate me. Not that anyone was, but that's just my point. If you thumb me down, I don't care. Okay, I'll take your opinion. Whatever you want to do. Yeah, I mean, I just don't, if someone says they unsubscribe, I don't let that stuff bother me. I'm not going to be dictated to. And again, no one on this chat has done that. But I'm just saying, those are my points of why I said it. Story-wise, you would think that Section 31 would have hijacked the Enterprise and go ahead with the Hugh plan. You know, I wonder, that's a good point. I wonder if Hugh had, if some heads rolled on that, or after that, if Section 31 decided to get an operative onto Enterprise D to make sure that stupid stuff like that doesn't occur. Something Worth Watching channel become a part of the lore. Now they truly are something worth watching. Someone said the killing of Data's daughter, the malfunction. What? Why do you think that? I would be curious. What would they have to gain by killing Data's daughter? Why would they have done that? Cryptic Stream says, when looking at the Prometheus, the design is nothing like anything Starfleet has designed. The saucer is a triangle, perfect for war, and the weapons were quite high for Starfleet standards. While I can agree with that, this is at the height of the Dominion War, and we see a lot of these changes throughout. And just consider, Starfleet has gone out of its way to not follow its standard creation practices. So I'm doing the Centaur. The Centaur is coming out today. It'll probably be coming out about 2 or 3 p.m. Central Standard Time. And the Centaur doesn't match general Starfleet designs. It has a primary hull, a circular primary hull. That's normal. But the secondary hull is simply a weapons module, which goes against generally how it's built. Look at the Saber, not the Saber class. Look at the Steamrunner class. That goes against it as well. And that was built during the Dominion War. Arguably was designed after the Borg attacked. So, I see what you're saying. It's not without merit. But Starfleet will rarely go against their own designs because the writers and executives want something new out there, and they can't find a way of being original without having to scrap everything they've talked about. One thing I do think, and this is Voyager, not TNG, one thing I do think, the Omega Directive, the specialized team, would be Section 31. Absolutely. I'd be surprised if Section 31 would not want a race of androids. You can make them believe in anything you want, and they would be perfect operatives. Well, I agree. Lobster11, wait, what? Data is anatomically correct? Yes, he is anatomically correct, and to quote him exactly, fully functional. And that is why him and Tasha Yar had relations. If anything, Section 31 would have wanted Data's daughter to live so they could make more useful disposable agents. Possibly. Section 31 is the only narrative way to make the Federation viable long enough to reach a critical mass where it would be unstoppable despite its values. Sure. I agree. I agree that Section 31 is an out for writing yourself in a corner, wanting a civilization to have these advancements, but not willing to do what it takes or to go further. You know? And so, guys, I'll probably take a look at this Star Trek Discovery cast and producers talk canon and characters at the Emmy. So we'll probably, towards the end, we're going to end this with me raging and being highly triggered. Maybe she didn't die and they used her as a base template. That's interesting. We have no reason to believe that, but that is interesting. ST Al, I also can't shake a feeling that Section 31 had a hand in the events of In a Pale Moonlight. They were probably watching with a very interested eye, because remember, in a pale moonlight, they went out of their Starfleet Command said, yes, let's lie to the Romulans to pull them in. Starfleet Command agreed to all of it. So the fact that they wouldn't know is highly unlikely. It would have been interesting if maybe they worked with Garrick. I don't like that, though. I like thinking Garrick did all of this on his own. But it's possible that they could have teamed up with him. I don't know. It's intriguing. You should do a live stream of you burning Star Trek Discovery DVDs and toys. I'd probably be crying. While I was doing that. But yeah, we'll go on a little bit further, and then I'll skim through this and see. I'm probably just going to get angry, though. I'll be honest with you. It's probably just going to irritate me to absolutely no end, because that's the way it goes right here. Let's see. Section 31 be the writing equivalent of use the force. I can kind of see that. What's going on, Jodo175? How you doing? You doing well, Jodo175? Imagine what would happen when other organizations, like the Tal Shiar, figured out Section 31 was a thing, though. By giving evidence to the people, they could completely undermine the United Federation of Planets. Yeah, I agree. I just don't think anyone would believe it. The populace and the civilians of the United Federation of Planets are so stupid and willing to accept what's been told to them. That the fact that if the Romulans came out and said, well, let's do X, or you're doing X, or look, this exists, I don't think many people would believe it, to be honest. I know I did in some of my lore theories where they did, but the more I look at it, the less I feel like they would believe propaganda that way. I mean, the Federation, for all intents and purposes, is insanely dystopian when you look at the limitations they put on information and their people. I don't know. Jimbo Logic has a sheep. I'm not sure why he has a sheep there, but the sheep has arrived. All right, you guys got any more to this, or shall we save the rest for the Geek Breakdown tonight at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time? One quick second.
Just want to go lay down.
Okay, well, go lay down if you want to, if you're not feeling well.
Oh, just I need a break.
Okay. Sure. Do you think it's possible that Section 31 has an agent on the Enterprise during the events of First Contact? Probably not. I mean, well, by that time, probably. I don't know if it would have changed anything. Timur Ozalp, I'm going to launch a channel called Data Reloaded, devoted to saying exactly what you say, but devoid of any emotion, and thus getting DMCA'd. Section 31, I had a hand in Spock getting to Romulus as a long-term pacification plan to bring the Empire into the Federation. Huh. I don't know. At lore, why wouldn't the Starfleet captains know about Section 31? Shouldn't they have read the charter? Well, the point of that charter, though, is, I'm sure they read it, but they don't, Section 31 is not meant to be taken, or when it was written, most people wouldn't read it the way that it's interpreted or the way that it's used. Let me see if I can find it. UFA Charters, Section 31. I don't think we have exactly what it says, but let me see if it gives us any kind of idea of specifically is in it real quick. Because again, the way they've always kind of discussed it, it's pretty vague. And yeah, this isn't giving me anything. I'm sure if I had time to read through all of this. The organization's title come from the original Starfleet Charter, Article 14, Section 31, which allowed for extraordinary measures to be taken in times of extreme threat. So when you look at that, it allows for extraordinary measures to be taken in times of extreme threat. When I see that, I don't necessarily see, let's create a Black Ops organization that will kill Starfleet officers to save the to save the Federation. So I think it was innocuous in that way. Did O'Brien work for Section 31 as well as doing those crime infiltration? No, I think that was standard intel. I think O'Brien was just doing Starfleet intelligence. I don't think it was Section 31 work. Section 31 might have had anti-Borg weapons before Wolf 359 and might have bugged the Raven to gain intel. They might have bugged the Raven to gain intel. I don't know that they had anti-Borg weapons. By the time it got to Earth, I think they would have done something about it. A lot of the TNG episodes involving the Cardassians reeked of Section 31, involvement, planning the Bajoran ensign and act as a prisoner for the Cardassian spies. Yeah, I could see that. Brian Griffin, I see a blanket statement that allows me to do whatever I want. When I want. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It is so vague. But that's just like the Omega Directive. The Omega Directive is a blanket statement to do whatever you want. I think Ransom could have gotten away with it. He just said, oh my god, it was for the Omega. We found the Omega. And it's awful. Alright guys, I'm going to be ending this fairly shortly. And so, let me take a look at this discovery. And I'll read it to you and we'll do kind of like a side-by-side. And if you guys enjoy it, great. If not, we can always just end it there. Lore, wasn't Section 31 made before the founding of the Federation? It in fact was. It was part of the United Earth Starfleet. Let me see. All right, here we go. Yeah, I can already tell this is going to annoy me. Heather Caden talks about balancing the needs of fans and new viewers. Picking up on how, and this is from TrekMovie.com, picking up on how Episode 7 featured the original series character, Harry Mudd, the moderator asked executive producer Heather Caden how much they looked to servicing fans versus trying to create something new. To which Caden replied, if we wanted to create something new, we wouldn't have made a freaking prequel. We're just trying to make a lot of money. Okay, she didn't say that. Hold on. She said, a big part of the show, and everyone in front of the camera and behind the camera, is such a combination of people who are obsessed Trek fans to people who sort of like to people who barely know it at all. I can sincerely believe you that a lot of people on set had no idea what Star Trek was online. Thank you for being honest about that. Of that, I can believe. So we talked and still do about the importance of it has to be true to fans. That's a lie. But it has to open the door to people who didn't know it before. Especially since prior to now it has been a show and movies that appeal to an audience that has grown in age. And how do we bring in younger people who have not seen it before? This is exactly what I was telling you guys. This is exactly. This is what they're doing. Everybody, every time I've talked about it, that they're doing this because they don't care about older fans and nostalgia. They're trying to bring in younger people. Everybody called me stupid. And a lot of people were like, oh, well, I'm like 12 and I like Discovery and I like the old ones, so it can't be that. She admits it right here. Thank you. She admits it right here. And let's just read it again, because I like it. Especially since prior to now, it has been a show and movies that appeal to an audience that has grown in age. And how do we bring in younger people who have not seen it before? Told you guys. I know what I'm talking about. And that has been what is so great about the show, as a lot of us have kids who are on the age who can be watching it and exposed to... Heather Caden has kids that she lets watch gore porn and sexual, overtly sexual acts. Okay. All right, that's enough of Heather Caden. Not reading her anymore. Yeah. Nathaniel Shade, breathe in, breathe out. Woosa. Oh, from the Star Wars. Let's all die of dysentery. All right, here we go. All right. Micah Leith is done.
Sir? The last thing I expected.
That was apt. That was apt. Absolutely apt. All right. All right, Alex Kurtzman. The talk about balancing the past with the new show prompted a question for co-creator Alex Kurtzman, who talked about the approach they have taken for the look of the show. There is a whole police squad of people who are really on top of making sure that the colors are consistent with canon and design is consistent with canon. We are always asking ourselves, we know what a phaser looks like, but we want to make it new. But we can't make it too new because it is actually pre-toss. Welcome, Josh Cheatham, becoming a lore master. But it has to be something fresh, but also stay consistent with what you know. Dude just repeated himself like 6 times just then. I'll say this. I did like the phasers. I do think they're very... they're new, but a good homage. And that is a daily conversation on every front. No, that's a lie. That doesn't just apply to the props and to the looks of the show. I think the films taught me a lot about how to attempt to walk the line. But as Heather said, trying to please fans, but also bringing in new audiences, because that is how Star Trek has remained what it is for over 50 years. For me personally, the line between television and film is completely blurred now. We endeavor every week to make it a movie. Certainly that has been our goal this year. Hopefully we can continue to do that. 255 AD, welcome. Yeah, I think it's good homages, some of them, and I don't think they care about it how it looks. But yeah. Okay, not too much. I'm gonna go. By the way, are you guys enjoying this? I'll continue breaking this down if you'd like me to. Co-showrunner Aaron Hubberts admitted part of the motivation for the Time Loop episode with Harry Mudd was financial, saying, in terms of Time Loop, we were desperate to save money. I'm not going to lie. In this instance, is how he should have ended that sentence. Nathan Norman, the charter and the nebulous on this. The charter is nebulous. I don't think Nathan Norman has caught up with that. All right. Going back to the Trek movie. However, later he noted how even the standalone episodes, like episode 7, the showrunners try to work important moments for characters in longer arcs, even in the next season. But when Gretchen sat down and decided to do a time loop episode, which is magic to make the sanest man go mad, we ask, what do we get out of it, and what are the bigger pieces that are going to contribute to this giant tapestry that Gretchen and I feel very responsible for weaving a universe? You already have a universe. You're not... This is your problem. This is... Who the hell is saying this? This is your problem, co-showrunner Aaron Hubberts. It's not your universe. It is a universe that has existed for over 50 years. You want to create something that is within the universe. You want to tell a different story, but it's not your universe. You know why you're failing? Okay, I don't know if you're failing or not. A lot of people say you are. CBS says you're not. But if you are failing, this is why. It's not your universe. For Hugh and Stamets, that is learning more about the relationship, like the Caecilian opera, which is something that starts and gets threaded all the way. All right. Woo. All right. I like Hugh and Stamets. I do. I like that story. I like the way they're going with it. I like how it feels natural and it's not in your face. I like that. That is not the universe, though. That is not even close to what the universe is. Learning about the relationship is not Star Trek. It's not. You want to know why a lot of people are getting angry? Is because of this. Hugh and Stamets works when you don't try to shove it in people's face. And it pushes a normalization that is needed in some parts of the country. But when you push it in people's face like this, that's the problem. It's not Star Trek. It is a part of Star Trek. You know, I've been told by larger channels that who have connections that CBS and Paramount will never be associated with this channel. I can only wonder why. All right. I love this title. Martin Green sees Burnham/L'Rell relationship as embodying Star Trek. Reveals cut line. Let's see how this goes. What was beautiful about Burnham and L'Rell is that there are so many similarities between these two women. In these worlds sort of overcompensating and trying to find their voices. Also going off of strict nurture and really being affected by the environment where they were raised in and seeking to question that and seeking to maybe even step outside of that. Also, going off of strict nurture. Okay. What I love is having... I don't necessarily disagree with that. Let's see if she keeps doing well. What I love is having these two women who seem like enemies and realizing there's no difference between us, which is very Star Trek. There's nothing different between us. Which one is it? Is it diversity? Is it we all need to agree with each other? Is it we need to be the best that we can be, that everybody is beautiful in their own way and that we can't judge? Or is it that we're all the same and there's nothing different between us? Anyway. And it is something that Takuvma says in episode 1. He says, I look at you and I see myself reflected in you. And that is very much Star Trek. All existing things are one. These really, really powerful truths that have kept Star Trek the endowment that is. There's a line that unfortunately had to be cut where I look to L'Rell and Burnham says, today she is not my enemy. I mean, that doesn't anger me. I just disagree. By the way, if you guys haven't watched, Martin is a great actress. On The Walking Dead, you guys should watch her if you haven't. Okay. Let me look back to what you guys are saying real quick. LMAO, oh, this is ridiculous. True Lore, Palm Paint. It's all about diversity, except diversity of thought. Doctor from sickbay said to take a break to cool down, so now go to your room. Lore Inside and Out. Has CBS been drinking the Kathleen Kennedy Kool-Aid? Maybe. All right. Mary, on playing Laurel, sees herself in Laurel. For her part, Chifo spoke about how playing Laurel has freed her as an actress. Laurel is almost a character that is the closest to me, because I don't have to hold back. I'm 6 feet tall, and I have a big voice, and I have been told my entire life I'm too intense. So this is an opportunity for me to be all that. It has been so liberating. Well, unfortunately, Martin Green disagrees with you. You're the exact same as everyone else. Chifo also discussed Laurel's arc as the character changed by the season finale. What's really fun about Laurel's arc in the first season is it's misconstrued by the Federation, a little bit. She is so alien, and a lot of her actions can be seen in a certain way if you are judging her by human standards. The Federation and Starfleet aren't human. Discovery makes that painfully clear. What is so fun is to not be afraid of that and allowing her to be as full and as big as she can be, and then finding ways by the end of the season she's starting to see how the humans aren't so bad. So, I mean, we just misjudged her. She is only helping to kill as many humans as possible, torture humans, was there when humans were being eaten, really enjoyed torturing the heck out of humans. But, she's really just a misunderstood cupcake. By the way, just so I'm saying, I disagree with these sentiments. I don't necessarily disagree with the actor, or I don't necessarily don't like the actors. I just don't disagree. Nathaniel Shea, no need to read the interview. I don't want you to have a heart attack if you come to an early demise. It must be from Vincent. That's true. All right. 1 in the chat if you want me to continue. We got 4 more statements, or 2 if we're just going to end it early and pick back up tonight. I'll give it a couple seconds. Let you guys decide what you want me to do. Oh, yeah, and that's a good point, Nathan Norman. She did, technically, it ultimately ended up to be consensual, but she was... Laurel specifically was pointed out to do that to a human being. She was, she assaulted, that person, in every way. So, yeah. But she's just like humans. All right, Jones, who played Saru, Jones delighted the crowd with a somewhat off-color joke as he talked about how he approached playing Saru. In my career of 30-something years, I like Saru, by the way. I have worn more latex than a cheap person of the night. The challenge with the character is, how do I make this one different than the ones I played before? The makeup informs a lot of that. The story I am plunked into and the characters I play off of informs a lot. Saru, as a Kelpian, this is a new species in the world of Star Trek. The fact that it takes place before the original series is like, what happened to the Kelpians? We'll find out, I'm assuming. So it's a daunting task, taking on a new species. Okay, so you made an off-color joke about women who make money, or people who make money in intriguing ways. Actor James Frang talked about how he prepared to play the Vulcan Sarek. The whole Vulcan thing revolves around this idea that they don't have emotion. No! That is not what Vulcans are. Are you the original...
What's going on? You look like very negative.
No, I'm good, baby. I got nothing. Got on a string. Hey, you want to come say hi to people real quick?
Hello.
Come here.
Hello.
Okay.
I've not been in a good mood today.
Oh, I'm in a good mood. All right, go lay down. Or not go lay down. Go play. All right. No, that's not what Vulcans are. First off, they have emotion. It's about overcoming that. It's about suppressing the emotion. You don't know what your character is about or his species. Is it a wonder why it's not doing well? That's not what it's about. The interesting thing about Vulcans, and Spock, it really portrays it very well. Nimoy did a wonderful job. is that there is emotion there, but it's suppressed because of what it did to them. You can still see the emotion if the actor knows what they're doing. The person who played Tuvok, when he first started playing Tuvok, didn't really do it well, in my opinion. But towards the end of the series, the end of the series of Voyager, he shows that balance that Vulcans have to go through. All right, the whole Vulcan thing revolves around the idea that they don't have emotion, but as true Star Trek fans know, they contain emotion. If you don't have it, you can't contain it. Going back to watch the earlier Sarek performances, there was one that really struck with me. It was right at the end in The Next Generation. Sarek has a kind of a freak out with Picard. Okay. It was mind-blowing to watch. Oh, he has all that's going on, and he just doesn't let it out. And that is kind of the code. And that is kind of the code. It isn't that you don't feel anything. You feel it, and then you go like that. You go like that, straight-faced. So being British is an enormous advantage. So all I had to do is layer in some condescension and some patronizing, and basically I was going full Brit. Vulcans are always emotional, but they contain and control emotional control. That's all they must. Question: what did the Romulans suppress to survive? They didn't. You know, the interesting thing is that I don't necessarily have an issue with James Frain and the way he portrays Sarek. He doesn't understand Vulcans or the character, obviously. The one thing I would agree with is there was, I forget the episode, but there was a scene with him where he's talking to Burnham. It was towards the end. And Burnham had fallen in... Spoilers. Burnham had fallen in love with someone who turned out to be a spy, an enemy. And he says, you know, there's no shame in having emotion or falling in love with someone. It's how you do it. And then he relates it back to his wife. So at least the way Sarek is written, specifically, it can be done pretty well. But yeah. Wilson Cruz on how playing Dr. Culber is life-altering. In a change of tone, Wilson Cruz got choked up as he told a story about how playing Dr. Culber, and specifically about Culber's relation with Anthony Rapp, Lieutenant Stamets, has had an impact. Hybrid Jack says, as a Brit, I'm not sure how I feel about him saying we are nearly emotionless. I do agree we normally just ignore and go on with thought. Well, I can see what he's saying from an American standpoint, from a United States citizen standpoint. Brits seem pretty reserved compared to how people in the United States act. And so I think maybe that's where he's going with it, especially if he's talking to a United States audience, an audience from America. So I can kind of see that. I forget what show it is. There is a show in the UK. I think it's Jeremy Kyle. Jeremy Kyle is compared to be the Jerry Springer of the U.S. I've watched a bit of Jeremy Kyle, and that is so subdued and very mediocre when it comes to drama. But a lot of my friends who are British think that it's as bad as Jerry Springer, and so I think that's where he's trying to come from. I think he was probably just talking to a U.S. audience. Oh man, you have my sympathy. Is it possible to vote in a free speech amendment over there? What? Oh, you guys are talking about something else. All right, here we go. For Anthony Rapp and I to be playing two openly gay men, and to be two openly gay men playing these roles and bringing life to an epic love story in which the gender of the love is less important than anything, has been life-altering. When we talk about the representation mattering, it has become clearer and clearer for me in the last year. That specifically, that is specific. That specifically, I don't disagree with, and I do think that the relationship between the two on Discovery is the appropriate way to do it and to normalize it and to bring it to places that it needs to be. I don't think. I think that Stamets and Culber were written very well. I especially, and again spoilers, but I especially like towards the end where Culber finds out that Stamets has been lying to him, and but Stamets has to go through and do all of these things that could get him killed, and Culber is there doing his job, but it's also that you can tell that he loves him, and so I don't mind that. Continuing on with what he was saying. Just the other day, I got a note on Instagram from a young man in Europe who's a big fan of the show and said Anthony and I inspired him to come out to his mother, and his mother accepted and loves him completely and thanked us for that inspiration. See, that I like that. I think that is what Star Trek is supposed to be. I think that is why it needs to be done the way it's done. Why Stamets and Colburn is done so well. Florian, are you out? Talk to you later, brother. That is why I think it should be that way. And for me, that is what it's about, that we get to help this generation imagine a future worth their while. Exactly. This is the only guy that gets it. Wilson Cruz is the only guy that understands Star Trek. In the of all Discovery, it's Wilson Cruz. We get to express to them a future where they are celebrated for their differences, not just tolerated. Okay, well, I don't know about that, but I don't think... See, that's my thing. I don't think it's... Tolerated is the wrong word. I don't think celebrated is the right word. I think that they're cool with that, and it's okay, and they're happy, and people are happy that they're happy. And I think that's the way it needs to be. That our loves are equal in scope and beauty. Of that I would agree. To be a part of that is life-altering. That is the only one I like. Wilson Cruz, that is the only one that I think is good. Yeah. Yup. All right, you guys have anything else you want to bring up or we want to discuss before we get off of this? Baby brother's here, might be silent for a while. Okay. Discovery did do that well. I mean, a relationship that's just something there for the most part in the background, instead of choking us on lovey-dovey stuff and having it come to play. Yeah, Hybrid Jack, I think if we're going to do romance, I don't like romance in science. I don't think it's needed. I don't necessarily like it. I just don't think it's necessary. But if you're going to do it that way. But yeah, so I guess that's where we're going to end it, guys. I appreciate it. I thank everyone for coming. The actor who got killed off the show is the only one who gets tracked. Yeah, that's true. I didn't think of it like that. But yeah, I think that's where we're going to go with it, guys. I want to thank everyone who's come. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. And guys, we're going to see you on the next... And I always pause because I got to pull up the song so we can play it. Lore Reloaded. Yes, we can call it sci-fi instead of science. Oh, new video coming out at the probably in about an hour to 2 hours max, and then 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. We'll be doing a geek breakdown where we put Section 31 on trial.